In international relations, some hypothetical scenarios reveal the fragility of global peace. One such scenario is a military conflict between Pakistan and Israel, two nuclear-armed nations separated by thousands of miles. Despite no shared border or direct history, the idea of war between them is debated in strategic circles. Both are regional powers with unique alliances. Israel, a US ally and technological powerhouse. Pakistan, a key player in the Muslim world with its own nuclear arsenal. This scenario isn't about predicting war but understanding the stakes if diplomacy fails. We'll explore their history, how conflict could start, their military strengths and the global alliances that would be tested. Most importantly, we'll consider the human and economic costs. This isn't a story of winners and losers, but a warning about the price of war in a nuclear world. The idea of Pakistani and Israeli jets clashing may seem far-fetched, but the underlying tensions are real. Even a small miscalculation could have global consequences. By examining this scenario, we see the immense effort required to prevent such a catastrophe. It's a reminder that in our era, true security is built on peace, not conflict. Understanding these hypotheticals helps us appreciate the delicate balance that keeps the world stable. The path to prosperity is paved with diplomacy, not destruction. To grasp why a Pakistan-Israel conflict is even discussed, we must look at their history, one of principled distance, not confrontation. Since 1947, Pakistan has never recognized Israel, rooted in its Islamic identity and solidarity with Palestine. This stance shapes its alliances and role in the Muslim world, leaving no embassies or formal communication. The absence of dialogue breeds suspicion and misunderstanding. Occasional unofficial contacts exist, but official rhetoric remains harsh, especially during Middle East crises. Pakistan balances its Arab alliances and domestic politics, while Israel views Pakistan as a distant but significant nuclear power. Both sides rely on intelligence and third-party information, fueling strategic mistrust. There's no open hostility, but a cold silence that can be unpredictable. Each nation watches the other warily, concerned about military capabilities and intentions. This long history of non-recognition and mutual suspicion is the backdrop for any hypothetical conflict. Sometimes silence is more dangerous than open rivalry. Without shared borders, a direct land war is nearly impossible, but modern conflict can start in cyberspace. A major cyber attack on critical infrastructure traced to the other nation could be seen as an act of war. Covert operations or assassinations by intelligence agencies like ISI or Mossad could trigger retaliation. Proxy warfare in third countries or a miscalculation during regional crises such as Israeli strikes near Pakistan's border with Iran could escalate tensions. In a climate of mistrust and no direct communication, intentions are easily misread. Military exercises or technological upgrades could be mistaken for preparations for attack. Disinformation and social media amplify every incident, fueling public outrage and pressuring leaders to act. The first step toward war is often a misunderstanding that spirals out of control. In the digital age, the fog of war can descend before a single shot is fired. Modern conflict is as likely to start with a keystroke as with a missile. Pakistan and Israel have built their militaries for different threats, creating a classic asymmetry. Israel's strength lies in advanced technology, air power, missile defense and rapid mobilization. Its strategy, precision strikes, air superiority and cyber warfare to neutralize threats quickly. Pakistan boasts a larger army, extensive missile arsenal and experience in both conventional and unconventional warfare. Its forces are structured for conflict with India, but its strategic depth makes invasion difficult. For either side, projecting power over such distance is a logistical nightmare. Airstrikes would require crossing hostile airspace and missile attacks would face formidable defenses. A direct battlefield clash is unlikely. Instead, both would rely on standoff capabilities. Israel would target high-value sites with technology and intelligence. Pakistan would counter with missile threats and unconventional tactics. The war would be a contest of Israeli precision versus Pakistani numbers and reach. In this scenario, technology and geography shape every move. A Pakistan-Israel war would instantly become a global crisis, drawing in powerful allies and rivals. The US, Israel's closest partner and a key non-NATO ally to Pakistan, would face an impossible choice. US support for Israel would likely shatter its relationship with Pakistan, jeopardizing counter-terrorism and regional stability. China, Pakistan's close ally, would back Islamabad diplomatically and possibly with aid, using its UN veto to shield Pakistan. The Muslim world would be split, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, despite recent ties with Israel, would face public pressure to support Pakistan, but would hesitate to act militarily. Turkey and Iran might offer more direct support to Pakistan, seizing the chance to challenge Israel and champion the Palestinian cause. The UN would be paralyzed by US and Chinese vetoes, turning the conflict into a proxy for larger geopolitical rivalries. Every nation would feel pressure to pick a side, risking a wider regional war. Alliances meant for security could instead fuel escalation. The conflict would expose deep divisions in the Muslim world and test the limits of US-China cooperation. Global diplomacy would be in crisis mode, but solutions would be elusive. The risk of the war spreading would be dangerously high. In this tangled web, even small actions could have global consequences. The world would watch, powerless to stop the escalation. The alliances designed to prevent war could become the very engines that drive it. The most terrifying aspect of a Pakistan-Israel conflict is their nuclear arsenals. Nuclear weapons raise the stakes to existential levels. Deterrence is meant to prevent war, but escalation is always a risk. Israel's policy of nuclear ambiguity and Pakistan's flexible doctrine both aim to deter catastrophic threats. If either side faced defeat, the temptation to use tactical nuclear weapons could become real. Even a single nuclear strike would trigger global condemnation, retaliation, and unimaginable destruction. Fallout, climate disruption, and millions of casualties would follow. The nuclear shadow is the ultimate argument for peace. The true cost of war is measured in human suffering, not military statistics. Missile strikes on Israeli cities would cause mass casualties and psychological trauma. In Pakistan, Israeli attacks would devastate infrastructure, disrupt food and water supplies, and create a humanitarian crisis. Both nations would see waves of refugees, overwhelming neighboring countries and aid organizations. Delivering relief in a war zone would be perilous, and many would go without help. The scars of war would last generations. Children growing up amid violence, communities destroyed, and trust shattered. Hatred and trauma would make future reconciliation nearly impossible. The cycle of violence would continue, fueled by stories of loss and grievance. In war, there are no true winners, only lives forever changed. Empathy reminds us that behind every statistic are people who simply want peace. A Pakistan-Israel war would send shockwaves through the global economy. The conflict zone sits near vital energy corridors. Fears of disruption would send oil prices soaring. Higher energy costs would trigger inflation worldwide, hitting developing nations hardest. Financial markets would panic, with investors fleeing to safe havens and stock markets plunging. Both Pakistan and Israel's economies would collapse. Currencies devalued, investment gone, and war debts mounting. Global trade would suffer. Pakistan's textiles and Israel's tech exports would halt, disrupting supply chains. Regional instability would ripple through the Middle East and South Asia, breaking fragile economic links. The world would be reminded how interconnected and vulnerable our economies are. The economic fallout would be global, not local. In today's world, no conflict is ever truly contained. Despite the grim possibilities, a direct war between Pakistan and Israel remains highly unlikely. Distance and nuclear deterrence make open conflict nearly impossible. Leaders on both sides know the costs far outweigh any gain. Global powers like the US and China would intervene diplomatically to prevent escalation. The UN and informal channels would work overtime to mediate and de-escalate. This scenario is a powerful reminder of the need for dialogue and diplomacy. Even quiet, unofficial communication can reduce misunderstandings and build trust. Peace is an active process, requiring effort and engagement. The real lesson, our greatest security comes from cooperation, not confrontation. In the end, the most powerful weapon is our ability to choose peace.